I am Jonny Reps here at my gym in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Today I'm going to share with you 3 Atlas Stone tips that I learned from the world's strongest man. I was at a seminar that he did at Fortis Fitness in downtown Toronto on January 27th. A lot of good info at that seminar. If you ever see the world's strongest man come anywhere near you, give him a big hug because he's a nice guy. And also, if you ever get a chance to go to one of his seminars, definitely go. We talked about all the other lifts like deadlifts, squats, bench press too. So this is but a kernel of knowledge that I picked up at that seminar. First question is, why Atlas stones? Well, the answer is today we're actually not even using Atlas stones. We're using sandbags because I don't have Atlas stones at my gym. If you don't know, Atlas stones are these big concrete globes that you'll see strongman competitors and people who want to do functional training sometimes use in their exercise programs. Why do they use Atlas stones? For strongman, it's because Atlas stones are usually a competition event in many strongman competitions. They are also really good at building this functional strength where the spine is in a flexed position. Mitch Hooper actually pointed out at this very same seminar that people almost never get injured doing Atlas stones, probably partially because it's a submaximal lift, but also because it trains your spine to be very resilient in that flexed position. Many people who have back pain struggle with doing the flex position. They have kinesiophobia, fear of movement. So getting yourself more comfortable and more stronger in that flexed position can be helpful from a strength perspective. It can be helpful for strongman events, and it can be helpful for just a rehab perspective if you have back pain or have had previous back injuries. How would you train Atlas stones if you don't have access to them? There's very few gyms that actually have Atlas stones. Here's a few options you can do. One of them is if your gym has sandbags, which is what I'm going to be demonstrating on today. They make a fantastic substitute for Atlas stones, and then you can use them for exercise such as the bag to shoulder or stone to shoulder, or a bag over bar / stone over bar. You can do an overhead press, you can do carries. Sandbags are a great alternative and they're cheap. You can buy sandbags, good quality sandbags from Bells of Steel for under $100. I started out with just a 200-pound sandbag from Bells of Steel. Here's a quick tip. You probably don't want to start super heavy with your first sandbag. I figured I have like, a 500-pound deadlift, something around there. I was like, well, a 200-pound sandbag, that's like nothing. I can deadlift, more than double that, so it shouldn't be a problem. 200-pound sandbag is challenging, especially to do for multiple reps and multiple different exercises. Start off a little bit lighter. If you're only going to buy one sandbag, a good rule of thumb would have been to start around like 30% to maybe 35% of my deadlift 1 rep max. So if your deadlift 1 rep max is 500 pounds, 30% of that would be what? 150. This is probably the sandbag I should have bought, this 150-pound sandbag. Anyway, another alternative for using sandbags is you can do Zercher lifts. They build many of the same muscles and the same type of functional flexed over strength as a sandbag lift does. Third option is you could buy a loadable stone. I don't really like loadable Atlas stones. They're pretty expensive. You're not going to really transport something like that to and from the gym, so it's something you would really only use at home. Maybe if you can convince your gym to get one, it would be a good idea, but they're just a pain in the butt to load. They're much more slippery than concrete Atlas stones. They're harder to grip on. They really slide and tear the arm hairs off. Those are some options for just training Atlas stones at your commercial gym. Again, you have sandbags if your gym has them. You can buy sandbags of your own. Go to a gym that has Atlas stones, obviously. Do Zercher lifts with a barbell because it's a similar movement pattern. And then finally, get a loadable Atlas stone, or maybe try and convince your gym to get one. Okay, so on to the Atlas stone tips. The first tip that he brought up was a loading tip, and this probably applies more to an Atlas stone than it does to a sandbag, though it is transferable to some degree. And that was when you load here, if you look here from the side angle, he said many people will try and put their hands directly at the sides. Mitch Hooper, World's Strongest Man, recommends that you put your hands a little bit forward and have your forearms kind of cupped here at the side, because that way the stone can kind of roll into your forearms as you're picking it up and getting it to your lap. Now again, this is probably more applicable to Atlas stones than it is to sandbags. So I would always previously teach straight hands when you're picking it up. And now, while that might be quite efficient, it doesn't really allow you to get a good enough grip specifically on Atlas stones. So what this would look like, the incorrect way of doing it would be straight hands like this and picking it up like that, right? Versus getting the hands a little in front, kind of curling them underneath like that, right? And then picking it up like that. I think that second one went a little smoother. The second tip that he gave me was to roll the stone up your body, actually create a ramp to roll that stone up your body. Because when you're trying to do a stone lift or a stone to shoulder or a bag to shoulder, you're trying to get the implement up as high on you as possible, as quickly and efficiently as possible. If you're trying to roll it straight up, like if you're standing straight up, you're basically just using your arms to try and move it up your body. And that's really hard and going to significantly limit the weight you can use. Not only that, but also make the exercise significantly less effective. What you want to do instead is you actually want to like ramp back as far back as you possibly can, essentially without falling over, to roll the stone or the sandbag up your body. So let me demonstrate. This is the correct way. Once you get it up the lap, right, lean back. See how easy that was to pull it up the body because I leaned back instead of keeping my body upright. It just makes it way more efficient. And the third tip that he gave me was specifically in relation to the stone to shoulder exercise. And that is, if you're doing a stone to shoulder, once you lap that sandbag or that stone, do not put both hands over top of it or at the sides like you would if you're just trying to put the stone over a bar like this. What you actually want to do is you want to, for a stone to shoulder, put one arm over the top and one arm underneath. If you're putting the stone up on your shoulder, you're going to have to switch to that position anyway. But if you start with both hands on top or both hands at the sides, you're going to have a lot more pulling from the top, but you're going to miss that underhand pull that you could have from underneath. You'd have to switch to that position anyway once you get it up to shoulder position. It's saving you time, making the lift more efficient, and also it's helping you kind of like guide it in the right direction, because if you're pulling up, right, and then you have to real quick shift and get underneath it and bring it to the side, that's not as efficient of a movement pattern as if you were just to like bring it up diagonally. Stone lifts are not symmetrical. If you're worried about your lift looking symmetrical or beautiful, strongman might not be for you. I would also say you don't have to worry about it. Maybe I'll make a video on form perfectionism and why it actually increases your risk of injury in a bit. If you want to see that video, drop me a comment. So anyway, here's the technique that I was talking about with stone to shoulder. Like I showed before, you lap it, right? And then at this position, you get one hand underneath and one hand on top. So from here, obviously, I'm putting it on my right shoulder. So then it'll roll, especially adding this in with the lean back, very efficiently up onto my right shoulder. There. And I did that in one go. Previously for me, doing an even reasonably heavy stone to shoulder would basically require me to huck it up. Like I would get to about here, then hold it, then here, and then hold it, and then finally finish it off up here. Much more efficient way to do it, as I just showed you. That's pretty much it for the video. If you are interested in learning more about amateur strongman stuff and how you might be able to implement it in your training for both strength, health, muscle growth, performance, etc., drop me a comment, drop me a follow, and do all the YouTube stuff. Let's go! There's a guy looking at me really weird in the window.